Using a raised garden bed is probably one of the best ways you could start making your garden. These are a perfect solution if you do not have a lot of room in your yard. But of course, nothing's perfect, so there are things that are good about using a raised garden bed, and also there are things that are not so great. And I'm really cold, I'm gonna get a sweater, I'll be back. You could build your raised garden bed out of logs, wood, bricks, whatever it is that you want, but I opted out for the composite raised bed garden. I got this because I don't have a lot of extra room in my backyard, but I did want to start growing some things for you guys on the channel here, specifically with this bed. The soil that you are putting into your raised bed garden does not need to be exactly what you need it to be when you are starting. Because one of the main benefits of having a raised garden bed is being able to change and adapt your soil to whatever it is that you need. So having good soil structure is a lot easier to obtain with a raised garden bed, but it is also very easy to have good drainage with the bed. If you don't have a pre-made, put it together yourself bed like this one, then you want to make sure that you do not make your bed over 4 feet wide, because you don't want to have to be reaching super far over to get to your plants, or have to even get on the bed and step all over your soil. Kind of defeats the purpose. And as far as how long the bed goes, that kind of depends on your situation, how much room you have, and how long of a walk you want to make to go around your bed to the other side. But if you do want to have a longer garden bed, then keep in mind you're going to have to walk all the way around it to get to the other side. These instructions are super simple, but I'm gonna see if I can just not even use them. I'm just gonna go for it. It's gonna be super easy, I bet. You also want to make sure that you have at least 6 inches off the ground, because you need to have that room for your roots to grow. Also, another thing is that if you do get a little kit like this, it's probably a good idea to lay it out in the spot that you want it, so you know what it's gonna look like. Like corn, or needs a lot deeper roots. There are some raised garden beds that are like giant metal tanks that you can have like 4 feet off the ground. I'll probably do small veggies in mine, just little veggies. I'll do little veggies. Oh, do screws go in this? There's screws for this? There's screws for this. Oh, what the hell? I didn't know that. This is a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be. When you're filling your garden bed with soil, you can either use the stuff that you get from the store, or you could use some soil that you already have laying around. Either way, you're gonna be able to amend it into whatever it is that you need for your garden. But also check to see if your soil is fluffy and airy, because you want the soil in your garden bed to be nice and fluffy. And a good way to tell is that if you grab it and you clump it together and it sticks together, it's very easy for it to fall apart. But for my garden bed, I'm going to use this organic soil that I got at Lowe's, and adding a lot of different organic materials to your soil will also help with drainage as well. If you don't have a pre-made garden bed like this one, then there are other options. You can use pressure treated lumber that's pretty inexpensive and it holds up pretty well against the elements. Or you can make it out of some composite materials like some wood fiber or some resin materials. One of the best things about making your own garden bed, or better yet, having a pre-built, put together yourself one like mine, is that they're very easy to assemble. Like the reason why I picked this garden bed instead of making my own out of wood is because it's gonna be a lot easier to move this one around or replace parts on it if I need to. So if I really need to, maybe with this one, I would just need to replace like a piece of plastic on the end or something like that. Another good reason to use a garden bed is that the soil that you would use, or where you do want to start your garden, that soil has already been contaminated. So instead of just working really hard on trying to get the bad soil to be good for your garden, you can just have a raised garden bed put right on top of it, where you can restructure your soil to whatever it is that you need. And it's especially good if you live in a very harsh climate like the desert, because then there's probably not a lot of good soil there to begin with. So you probably do have to use a raised garden bed that will make it so you can actually grow your garden. It's getting hot now. I'm putting my shirt back on. One of my favorite things about having a raised garden bed is that it makes pulling weeds a lot easier. If you're always constantly having to bend over to pull weeds, that's really bad for your back and definitely bad for your lower back. But if you have a raised garden bed, then you can get on your knees and keep your back straight while you're pulling your weeds, making it so that your back isn't going to be that messed up. So regardless of how old you are, you need to protect your back. You only have one spine, and if you're bending over to pull weeds all the time, it's gonna start to make your back hurt even when you're not doing it. So the raised garden bed definitely helps with that. Because my yard isn't really that big and I'm only working with one garden bed, I don't really have to worry about crop rotation. But if you have a lot of room to have multiple garden beds, then it'll make it a lot easier for you to do your crop rotation. Traditionally, you rotate your crops from different beds so that way your soil doesn't get all of its nutrients sucked out of it from one crop. But if you're using our starter kit, then you don't have to worry about any crop rotation. But if you do want to have your crop rotation, then it's ideal to have at least 6 plots to rotate with. A big problem with having your garden on the ground is that you tend to get compacted soil, and this is because you're walking around your crops, just stepping on the soil, making that dirt harder and harder for your roots to grow into. When you have a raised garden bed, you're not stepping on the soil, or at least you should not be stepping on the soil, and you are automatically increasing your chances of having a successful garden by not having super compacted soil pushing down on your roots and making it harder for them to grow and harder for your plants to grow. A raised bed is also good for crops that are hard to contain, like if you are growing mint or some wild berries. Those can pretty much spread like wildfire, so having them in the garden bed will make it a lot easier for you to contain them. But nothing is perfect, and there are some things that are not good about having a raised garden bed. If you are using compost in your raised garden bed, then you are subject to it settling over time. And if you have some sort of raised crop like grapes or tomatoes, then as the soil and compost settles, the crops will also go down with it. So you are also adopting the challenge of replenishing your compost as it settles. You also want to pay attention to the placement of your raised garden bed, because you don't want to put it somewhere where mice and raccoons and other little rodents could get to your crops and eat them. In order to help prevent this, I would say putting up a little fence or something like that around your raised garden bed will help to keep the rodents away. Something else that kind of sucks is that if you're using wood for your raised garden bed, then you're going to have to replace it at some point because of the termites or just dry rot. Some of the benefits are also some of the negatives at the same time, like having great drainage. During the summertime, you're going to be spending a lot more time watering your plants because they need more water, and the great drainage and the fact that it's summer and it's very hot is going to make it so that you're going to be watering your plants even more. But having a raised garden bed looks a lot cooler than just having your garden sitting on the ground. I think that having well-organized different garden beds in your backyard, or simply just one garden bed like mine, is a way cleaner and cool-looking approach to having a garden, at least in my opinion. And the best thing about it is that if you don't like where you put it the first time, you can pick it up and move it over. This is especially good if you're renting where you live. Chances are the landlord's not going to really want you to leave your garden bed laying in their yard, so it's easy to clean it up and take it with you. Well, I mean, you probably get new soil, but you could take the garden bed with you. Whatever it is that you're using your garden bed for, it's pretty much a win-win situation because it has a great way to restructure and have your soil be good, and it is also really great for drainage, and you can just move it around whenever you need to if you really want to. Leave a comment down below if there's something that I didn't cover that you know about garden boxes. Also, like this video. I will be making a new video soon about what I'm planting in my new garden box, so make sure you subscribe and ring the notification bell for that, and I will see you guys later. Love you. Bye.